Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our virtual boot camp. We have Jessie Yearwood today. She's with El Centro College, and she has been one of our judges on the safety and sanitation side for how many years, Jessie?
Since we had or started having them in US.
Okay.
That was what, 2009?
That might be. That's quite, probably 7, maybe 8 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Okay.
And I think I have been on it every year since we started, if my memory serves me correctly. I think I missed one, and that was unavoidable.
Right, right. Okay, well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and give us your background, and then we can jump right into safety and sanitation.
Okay, so as Yvonne said, I'm with El Centro College. My name is Jessie Yearwood. I have been in the food service arena for well over 30 years, and specifically with sanitation for about that long, actually, and or probably that would be more like 35 years. So this is an area that I'm comfortable with. I teach at El Centro, and I've taught here for the last full-time for 20 years, and then I was part-time for 6, and then I taught high school for 2 years before coming to the community college. So that's my background.
Okay.
And I, as we said earlier, have been judging ProStart since its inception, I think, at least in Texas. And so I am acquainted with the standards, and I enjoy working with the students on the competition floor. So it's a good place to give my talents to.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's jump right in. If you want to give us a little overview of safety and sanitation and how that all works in the competition, and what's we'll go into important tips and maybe some good advice from our lead safety sanitation judge.
All right. So in terms of sanitation and safety, ProStart is a part of the National Restaurant Association. And the National Restaurant Association is responsible or in partnership with producing ServSafe, right? And that is the governing kind of instrument mostly used across the 50 states of the United States and its territories around the world. So the practices that the students are expected to follow are in line with those expectations, right? And so from the standpoint of sanitation and safety, from the competition perspective, it doesn't begin when the students walk into the competition on that day when we're doing check-in, because also in that aspect, we are also looking for time and temperature abuse. We're looking for cross-contamination. So it kind of begins in the classroom, right? And if I would say anything about the competition and about food safety, it begins with an acceptance of the rules, knowing what they are, so to speak, and then having a plan for inculcating them or practicing them. So it's knowing what the rules are. It's kind of planning for those rules. It's practicing the rules, right? The students tend to practice, I guess, just for the food, the beauty of the plate, the fabulous taste of the food, but they oftentimes don't plan on the sanitation and safety piece. If I would say anything, it's to go back to the ServSafe textbook. I know, I'm sending them back to large documents, but I'm sure that the teachers in each one of the schools who are participating in this, if they simply took chapter 1 in the ServSafe textbook and look at the 5 areas of problems that are listed, those are the same areas of concern we see in the competition, right? So I would say review those with the students and have a plan for them to practice in the classroom while they're practicing for the plating and the fooding and everything else. So it's just another piece of the puzzle, if you would. So if we know the rules, and if we practice the rules, or we plan for the rules and we practice the rules, and we then execute the rules, right? And so that when we come to the competition, it is a natural part of what we do. So if I'm washing my hands when I'm in the school and I'm practicing for the competition and I'm doing that, then chances are when I come, I am going to also wash my hands. And we see how students practice that. So that would be, if I had to give any list of things to do, it would be review the rules, know what they are, right? Make a plan for how you are going to make them a part of the entire process, then practice them throughout the process. And when you get to us, execute them and have fun while you're doing it.
Okay, great. That's really great advice. What are the 5 things for those new teams that just are competing for their first year? What are the 5 things that stand out to you as a judge when you're on the competition floor and judging safety and sanitation?
Okay, so first of all, in that planning piece, not having a plan as to how you're going to execute sanitation and safety. So you get on the floor and you get excited and you start setting up your workspace and you forget, oh, I need my sanitation bucket, but I also need the soapy water, right? So we simply start with that. And then what do I do next, right? Am I going to wash hands? So I'm going to wash my hands, and everybody on the team. So teams that do really well at this usually have a way of signifying to everybody that we need to wash our hands, right? So we see that, and then that becomes a part of it. I would also say the whole setup process. If you crowd your workspace, chances are you're going to make mistakes. So your plates, for instance, that you're going to serve with should not be on the table when you are trying to handle raw products, because that is going to cause you to have cross-contamination. So that's one thing. In terms of, addressing time and temperature abuse, if you have a cold item that you're going to keep on your workspace for an extended period of time, yes, we know you're only going to be there for an hour, but still show us that you understand that a product should be on ice if it's going to sit there for a long period of time, right? So I'd look at cross-contamination and look at time and temperature abuse. Another thing that we see in terms of cross-contamination is not having a plan to clean and sanitize your board. Those 2 buckets that are sitting below your table or wherever you choose to put them are not just to tell the judge that, hey, here's the water, here's the sanitation, and here's the sanitizer. We are not the ones who are going to use it. What we want to see is that you are going to use it. You're going to use it to clean your knife and your cutting board if you need to. And so that's another thing. We also see there is that excessive use of gloves, where gloves are used for everything, right? And I understand why, because you want to make sure that your hands are not dirty when you are touching something, because you take the gloves off. The problem with that is a lot of times that students are using the gloves during the entire process, and then they get to plating and they're doing bare hand contact. And so they're using the rules in reverse, because in the preparation, you do not have to have gloves on unless you have a cut, right, or some kind of torn cuticle. Then you would have a bandage and your hand would be in a glove. But that is required at serving when you're plating. So we don't mind if your school is invested in gloves and you're using it through the entire process. However, when it comes to plating, no bare hand contact with ready-to-eat foods. So we have to remember that. So personal hygiene practices. It's this whole idea that when you get to the floor, be sure every part of your body is kind of in place in terms of the practices. So if you have nail polish on, we suggest you take it off before you come, and artificial nails and jewelry and those kinds of things. But in addition to that is when you're sweating, you're going to wipe your face. That's a hand washing event. So you have to keep in mind the personal hygiene practices, the tasting practices. Make sure you have enough tasting spoons. I would suggest disposable ones, the tiny ones, that you have those. So when you taste something, you can throw that spoon away. You can't use your fingers, none of those kinds of things. And so people who get points deducted for those tiny incremental things that they forget. Again, we come back to practice it in the classroom, and then you are going to be fine. I would like to also say and this is not necessarily a sanitation and safety guidance, but it impacts that, is make sure that when you're planning your production, that the food that is going to take the longest to cook is the one that you do first. And so that you don't come to the end and you have all this food that's sitting down there on a plate, going through time and temperature reviews, because that product was not the product you're waiting for. You waited for the last to put it on, even though it took the longest. So it's that time principle of executing your menu in a way that it flows, and practice that flow so that you're going to be successful. Again, I mentioned overcrowding the workspace, because when the workspace is overcrowded, you're all over each other, things fall on the floor. Also, I'd like to say, make sure that you have a container under your table in which you are putting dirty wares. So you just don't have them on the table and then you are tempted to use the same cutting board. And if you only have one cutting board, then know when it is that you are supposed to change by cleaning, right? And it doesn't just mean turning it over to the other side, because you may have carryover cross-contamination on the other side that you don't want to have showing up in your product as well. So those are some of the things that I would say in terms of that. In addition to that, in addition to the personal hygiene, knife safety is another thing, right? Make sure your knives are sharp, right? So before you come to the competition floor, make sure your knives are sharp. A lot of times students get cut not because they have a nice, sharp knife, right? But they have a dull knife. You don't have to go buy an expensive knife. Just make sure that you have the appropriate knife for the task that you are doing, and make sure it's nice and sharp. And don't forget that in knife use, that you don't just hang the knife off the cutting board and those kinds of things. You don't just throw it in the container in the bottom of the thing so somebody can sweep through it and get cut. In addition to that, clean and sanitize your knife between change use, right? So that's another thing that I would also recommend as well.
What, as a judge, are some of the most impressive things you've seen a student or team do in competition?
All right, and so I'm going to take this outside of the sanitation and safety, because I fondly, when I read that question, fondly recall a year, and it probably was 2-3 years ago, when a team did really badly and things fell apart for them for whatever reason. And there was a student on that team who, somebody on the team made an error, which was a big error that caused a deduction in the competition. And this young man walked over to his team and he hugged them and convinced them that it was okay, so that he wanted to prevent them from being angry at his team member and having an all-out war on the floor. And it was so impressive to watch, to see someone so young and such a leader, right? And if I would say anything to students about this whole thing, it is treat each other well, right? Come to the competition to have fun. Remember, yes, only one team gets to the top, but this is a part of something that can go with you for the rest of your life. It becomes a part of your resume. And you want to remember that whatever you did there, you walked away feeling that you had done your very best, right? And that you treated your team members with respect and dignity, whether you win or lose.
That's so great. And I also remember you being very impressed by a two-person team. I think some of their teammates had canceled, right?
Yes, yes, I remember that as well. I think that was last year, it may have been last year. And these two gals were fascinating because you watch them work their hearts out, and they knew in advance they weren't going to win, but it didn't stop them. They gave it, and even one of the team members was very much stronger than the other, but those girls kept going to the very end. And what it said about them is that they have a lot of drive, they're persistent, they're tenacious, and it's not necessarily about just winning. It's about proving the fact that when everything is going wrong, I don't have to fold and give up. I keep going on. And the reason we're talking about them today is because they were like that. They could have said, we're not going to participate because we're down to 50%. But that's not what they did. And I think that made an impression on all of the judges about the caliber of students that we're raising in the state of Texas.
That is so good. I love it. I love it. Okay.
Yes, it was delightful.
Yes, this is a stuff that really warms our hearts when we are on that culinary floor, isn't it? So what are some last minute, any last minute tips or advice that you can offer to the students as they come into this competition?
Remember, it's a competition. If I'd say anything, remember it's a competition. It is not the beginning or the end of your world. This is a competition. I would say plan well.
Okay.
Practice your plan. Look for things in your plan that do not work. So whether it's taste or it's we continue to forget sanitation and safety practices or whatever, then go back to the basic, right? If you do the basic things, then you're going to be okay. So I remember it's a competition. Go back to the basics. Practice, practice, practice. The idea that practice makes perfect, if that is true, remember, when you practice incorrectly, then you perfect it incorrectly. So be sure that what you're practicing is in compliance with the rules. And what I would say to the students, read the rules. Don't let the person who reads the rules simply be your teacher. You're responsible for reading the rules. And when you don't understand the rules, ask for clarification. That is a big deal, right? And so if you have a mentor that you're working with, give the rules to the mentor so the mentors know what the expectations are going to be. And again, I'd like to say, once you've executed, right, then come remembering and stay with your plan. I'd also suggest that you time yourself while you're in school and give yourself an edge by leaving a little bit of time at the end, so that if during the whole process something falls apart, right, you still have some leeway because you know that you are still inside of the time and you didn't use it all up. So again, I'd say relax, right? No, let me back that up. Dress appropriately, right? Okay. Know what the dress code is. Hair restraint. No excessive jewelry. No nail polish. The hands are in good repair, right? Know your plan. Execute your plan, right? Keep conscious of your sanitary and hygiene practices, right? If someone gets a cut, make sure you have a plan as to how you're going to do that. And when someone comes in, and if the person who is coming in, replacing that person, make sure they are a part of the team and they're practicing with the team and they have all the skills, because we don't know who they will replace on the team. So that needs to be an all-round person who is able to call the team out on sanitary practices. So, oh, you need to wash your hands, right? something like that. Don't crowd your workspace. At the end, follow the guidelines for proper plating, avoid temperature abuse, and by the way, have lots of fun and make some connections while you're there. Connect with the people in ProStart.
Okay, that's so amazing. Thank you so much for all of your advice, Jessie, and we look forward to seeing you in Frisco. Are there any last minute comments you want to make?
Last minute comments would be that this is a good place for our students to test their skills, right? And the competition is about leadership. It's about growing as a person. It isn't always about winning. It's about valuing your skill sets and being the best you that you can be, because that's what the world wants.
That's so amazing. Well, I always love your insight, and I love the advice that you always give me personally, but now that you're giving the rest of the student body. So thank you so much for having this virtual boot camp with us, and we look forward to seeing you in Frisco.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, as usual.
Thank you, Jessie. See you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.